Great game. 50 seconds to go. Hurts. Deep shot. Hauled in. Devontae.
Sure. Before the press conferences even start. I mean, we could talk for 45 minutes just about how atrocious the defense is.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Trending in the AM. Right here on DSM Media, we're live. Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. You know the drill. I say it every day. Hit that share button, retweet button, and like button. Make sure you head over to the YouTube page, hit the thumbs up, the subscribe button, and between Facebook and YouTube, that is the best way to get involved in the show. It's how I can put your comments like these examples on the screen, and you can interact with us, the hosts of this show, every single morning. Again, more examples here of how you can interact with us right there on the screen. Excuse me. I am Phil Stifler, your host at Bearded Knowledge on Twitter. I'm joined always by my co-host Jason Voorhees at Mustang 3651. Good morning, Jason. How you doing today?
Doing all right, man. How are you?
I'm fantastic. And we're brought to you here on Trending in the AM every morning by Manscaped, the leader in men's grooming products, the GOAT in below the waist maintenance. Make sure you check them out. Manscaped.com. Use promo code DSM at checkout. It gets you 20% off. Free shipping, and lets them know Team DSM sent you. And if you want to sponsor our show, you know, I got the I have no sponsor hotline. I've got the show sponsor. You could be a show sponsor and be a part of the fastest growing morning show. Like my man Mark says every Monday morning and on his Facebook page, dude, just plug us into your car on the car ride home. You can plug it in, Apple Play, whatever, YouTube, into your car, and you can listen to us instead of the dial. This is the fastest growing morning show there is, the best morning show there is, and the first live online morning show done in the Philly area 5 days a week. So we greatly appreciate the support. Jason, we got a jam-packed show today. We got lots to talk about. It's time to. It's not Overreaction Monday, but I'm sure everyone's overreacting to the Sixers' big loss yesterday. The James Harden and Ben Simmons introductory press conferences to their new teams happened. So I want to dive into that a little bit and some things that we learn and don't learn about that. And then I think it's time we get back to talking football. The Super Bowl's over. It's time to start focusing some of every show on the Eagles offseason and going forward with the Eagles. We're going to do lots of stuff this offseason, mock drafts, rating the players, looking for just building this team for the future. So we're gonna get started back into Eagles talk this show at some point. But we got to talk first, obviously, the Sixers. They lost last night to the Celtics, 135-87. And we're going to get into the game in a minute because I think the game is secondary. First, James Harden. Well, actually, first Ben Simmons was introduced to Brooklyn. But let's talk James Harden first. James Harden was introduced to the Philly media yesterday, along with Paul Millsap. Daryl Morey was there. Doc Rivers was there. Josh Harris was there. Somehow the GM of the team, Elton Brand, was not actually at the press conference at the podium. I mean, I really feel bad for Elton Brand. He's kind of a figurehead GM. He really has no say on what he does. He's probably Daryl Morey's intern and coffee getter. But we learned a lot about James Harden, and I think you get a better understanding of who he is after listening to his talk yesterday. But I think the biggest takeaway is he's really a no-nonsense guy, James Harden. You didn't get these crazy quotes from James Harden. You didn't see this over-the-top personality from James Harden. You don't get outside of the big googly eyes when you ask him, like Howard asked him a stupid question, and you just saw his eyes just like, geez, you know. But outside of that, what you're getting with James Harden is a guy that's really focused solely on basketball, and that's it.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, I think one quote to me, or one, it wasn't necessarily a quote, one segment of the interview got me all I needed to hear. I mean, when he basically said that he wanted to be on the Sixers back even when he was on Houston, like he wanted to be here last year, obviously. And they asked him that question, well, how come you didn't? And his response was actually kind of funny. He said, well, that was Daryl Morey's fault. Like, and he laughed. But in reality,
he cracked a smile.
Well, exactly. But my point is that just shows you all the more that he wanted to be here from day one. He didn't want to be in Brooklyn. So when you have a player that kind of wanted to be here the whole time, goes to Brooklyn, And then, all these people are making comments about how he's unhappy and he keeps changing teams. Well, in reality, he wanted to be here the entire time. So can you really fault the guy? Like, if this was his really preferred destination,
Which goes to say that if this was such a preferred destination, that the rumors that we did have to give up Maxey and Matisse and stuff like that in the deal are true, because the Nets literally had no leverage because he was leaving to come to Philly in the offseason no matter what. We wanted to get him here now, make one extra run at a title, but based off of that quote and all that kind of stuff, you knew that, maybe if anything, we did give up too much because he was leaving anyway. So, it's really I really do love that quote.
Well, and that was kind of twofold too, because Morey actually went on and said that we really didn't want to give up Drummond, but Drummond was actually one of the things that they had to have, because they're scared of playing against Embiid.
Exactly.
And that's just dude, when you got a team that's so scared and they ask for a player because they know that he's the only player probably in the NBA that can guard Embiid, that's hilarious to me. That just shows that we're in their head.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know why you'd want Joel Embiid or Andre Drummond to guard Joel Embiid, because we already know Joel Embiid owns, all the real estate in his head, 110%. Andre Drummond has never been able to stop him at all. So I'm not sure why you'd want him, to be the one that you want to get, as the guy to stop him. But I also love the fact that James Harden was so, I don't know, not gracious, so highly talking about, humble, talking. Well, no, I wasn't getting that. I was going to he was humble. Absolutely. We could talk about that. But, the fact that he talked so highly of Tyrese Maxey and his new backcourt mate, and we've already hit on it a few times, James Harden, like I said, he's a no-nonsense guy. The fact that he is going to help elevate and coach and mentor Tyrese Maxey, and he already knows it. He's been in Philly for a day and a half, and he already sees the potential in Tyrese Maxey. And then you heard, Daryl Morey also say, we kept him because we see a future all-star there. We see a future defensive player of the year after Joel Embiid gets his in Matisse Thybulle. And to hear these guys, the Daryl Moreys and the James Harden, talk so highly of these two young guys, not only are we set up to make a run now, by keeping them, we've set this team up for the future as well.
Yeah, it's the best of both worlds. Honestly, it couldn't have worked out any better, the script. You get James Harden, like I said, what I loved, and you hit on it, he's not really a guy that's looking to be spicy or, have, this glamorous type press conference where he's bragging I'm James Harden. He basically just answered the questions with kind of pretty short and quick answers. He wasn't he didn't try to sugarcoat anything. He didn't BS. You're right. It was funny. When the only time you did see his big eyes were Howard Eskin asked, which it's a question that generally.
I don't remember which question was his. I just remember the dumb question.
Yeah, and it was already asked. And honestly, he was just trying to get something out of him that you're not going to get. Especially when Harden just basically said, I wanted to be in Philly the entire time. There was no, kind of tension. He even said, obviously he loves playing with Kevin Durant. And, they tried to bait him into saying something bad about Kyrie, and he wouldn't.
And he flat out said Kyrie's a good friend.
Kyrie's my friend.
That had nothing to do with it, the fact that he's not there. But he did hint at the fact, again, that he wanted out of Houston because he didn't want to be the only guy. You know what I mean? He wanted help, and he wasn't getting it in Houston. And then he goes to Brooklyn against his will to an extent because he didn't want to go there. He wanted to come here. And then the help he was supposed to get in Brooklyn, again, between last year and this year, the big three played a whole 16 games together.
Well, yeah.
So he wasn't help in Brooklyn either,
You're right. And he made that known, I only played 16 games with these guys. It was almost okay, well, I left because I wanted this. I didn't get this, but I realistically wanted to be here. Right. It was an A, B, and C situation.
Another really important question that was asked. I forget who asked the question, but obviously on trade day, when the trade deadline or when the trade went down on the trade deadline day, obviously there was an initial report that his option was picked up for next year. And that made the trade, in my mind, a slam dunk because you're getting him not as a rental, but for long term. But then it came out a couple days ago that he never signed that extension. He never opted in, whatever. But he was asked about that yesterday as well. And he said, yes, I am staying here long term. And now there's reports going around that he didn't sign that option purposely because then financially that kind of hurts the Sixers. And if he signs an extension with the Sixers instead, and depending on the years and the money, it gives the Sixers more options to continue to see. I kept saying, what was my favorite word around the trade deadline?
Ancillary.
Yeah, I kept saying I wanted ancillary moves. And, they now have a playoff run this year. And then by him not opting in, it gives them more flexibility in the offseason to make ancillary moves so that if they don't win the title this year, they're still primed to make a run next year with Harden. And then it frees up the money in the trades. And I don't know all the cap rules and the compensatory picks and the trade exceptions, all the different things that happen around, the NBA with their cap and their trades and stuff like that. It gives them more flexibility next offseason to tweak the roster again, to continue to build that championship, contender that we so want. So he has clearly said, I want to be here. I will be here. And he's committed to being here. And I think that's my biggest takeaway from the whole press conference. He's committed to being a Philadelphia 76er.
Well, let's be honest here. If that really is the case and that is the truth, that's why he didn't sign, or didn't sign the opt-in, because he knows that if he does if he does a new deal, that he can sign for less money to help the Sixers. That's like Bryce Harper part 2. I mean,
you see it all the time. I mean, you could use the Bryce Harper example. That's great. I mean, Tom Brady was never the top paid quarterback in the NFL. He's the greatest quarterback of all time. I don't even think he's ever been in the top 5 in his career of paid quarterbacks in the NFL any one season of his career. So it is not it's not out of the realm of possibility a superstar taking a little bit less money. James Harden, he already is a Hall of Fame quality player. He's already, one of the greatest of all time scoring wise. What's the one thing missing from his resume? Yeah. I don't have a ring on my finger. I don't have a ring on either. Yeah, exactly.
A lot.
Yeah. At least we have all 5 fingers on each hand, right? Yeah. Okay. I got all 5 fingers. He's missing that ring. And sometimes, there are legit stars. It's not out of the realm of possibility to believe. Some stars in sports would rather $30 million in a ring versus $40 million and no ring. So that just shows, and that part, the part where he's willing to take a discount, that's a rumor. That's not a verified source. That's just a rumor I'm seeing floating around the internet. But that just shows his commitment to being in Philadelphia and wanting to be a part of a championship winning team here in Philadelphia.
Yeah, I mean, I love the guy. Like I said, I couldn't have been happier with the way that the press conference went. I didn't see anything that was like a red flag or any type of, answer that he might have made that would kind of make you cringe. Like, the guy was just straightforward. He obviously is extremely excited to be here and play with Embiid. I mean, he mentioned Embiid like 10 times. Like, obviously, Maxey.
And I think by saying all that, he knows his role. He is not the number 1 star on this team. He's the new star on this team, but he knows he's playing second fiddle to Joel Embiid right now. And I think he's okay with that.
Oh, yeah, and that just shows you that, I mean, you already nailed it, that he said that in the beginning, that was part of the reason he wanted out of Houston. He didn't want to be the guy anymore. He wanted to be part of a team, not the team.
Yeah.
And, there's a lot to be said about that, because when you have a guy of his caliber that does that, like, to me, that just shows you that it isn't all about the money, and it isn't all about being, the best player in the league. It's about winning a title, because when you have that attitude, that means you're buying into the fact that, you're putting away your ego, because in a certain sense it is, because the guys that want me, that want the ball all the time, I'm not saying that they don't care, because that's, there's a difference between caring and wanting the ball. I mean, AI was a perfect example. AI cared. AI gave a damn more than probably 90% of players, but he wanted the ball because he was that, he thought, he was the man.
Mhm.
Nothing wrong with that. But when a guy like Harden comes in and says, like, I don't want to be that really now, I want to be part of, the whole
Part of something bigger.
piece of the whole part. Yeah, exactly. A sum. That to me just shows you all you need to know. And, I'm just excited about having him. I mean, it was so funny to me. A little sidebar note, like Paul Millsap, he gets asked a question at like halfway through the compressor, and he goes, "I appreciate you letting me get a word in," and everyone just like went up and
Paul Millsap is a 4-time All-Star in this league. Paul Millsap, I mean, he's 37 years old. He's older. He's not the All-Star player, but he's still Paul Millsap. He's still a veteran that played at an elite level at one point. I mean, he got in last night, played like 9 minutes last night in that debacle, which I don't even really want to talk about much. I mean, he knocked down multiple three-point shots. He's going to play that small ball center role for the Sixers based off of matchups. Let's not write off the Paul Millsap portion of the trade. I mean, Paul Millsap is a guy that's been around the block for a really long time, and he's a really good role player still at this point in his career. So let's not write off Paul Millsap just yet.
Oh, yeah, I'm not writing it off. I just thought it was funny.
Well, some people think I've read stories that he was going to be a buyout candidate so they could add somebody. He won't get bought. He'll be a part of this team going forward, in my opinion, no doubt. One other thing I do want to touch on the James Harden part of it is his hamstring. And I kind of, when he was asked multiple times about getting ramped up to get back on the court and his hamstring, and I kind of got the sense, reading between the lines, that if the playoffs started last night, he probably would have played. But they're just taking extra precaution because of the fact that the All-Star break is coming up this weekend. They have one game left before the All-Star break. Why rush it? Why play him on Tuesday night and Thursday night? Then he gets a full extra week of rest and more time to practice with his team and get comfy in Philadelphia. There was no need to rush him. And that's kind of, I don't know if you felt the same way, but that's kind of how I felt about the hamstring part of it.
No, I think you're spot on. I think hamstring injuries are one of those type of injuries you have to be careful with. I mean, to me, why would it make sense for James Harden to play last night if, just say he is close to being fully healthy, but he's still, there's still a little bit of, say it's some pain or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. Why would you rush him when you have the ability now to just like not let him play these next 2 games, have the All-Star break, and then come back refreshed and just like kind of like a reset? Because let's face it, it's 2 games. I mean, and listen, I know it's every game is important because you're in the East and it's kind of tight, but I'm not going to be one of these people that's like, oh my God, they didn't play him. That's ridiculous. Like, it's a hamstring. If it was like, I don't know, any other type of injury that, really didn't have a chance of getting re-injured, I'd say, yeah, just play him. But hamstrings to me are always kind of a touchy subject for any athlete.
Well, on touchy subjects, let's transition to mental health issues. And the other guy, the other big part of the trade, Ben Simmons, had his press conference with Brooklyn yesterday. Okay. And all of a sudden, Ben Simmons has been bashed nonstop by the media for the way he's handled his situation in Philly. All of a sudden, he's in Brooklyn, and he's this media darling. And everything about his mental health issues, whether they're legit or not, is being blamed on the Philly fans. And again, I say the Philly fans suck, and we're okay with that, sort of. First off, I am so tired of the narrative that the Philly fans are awful people. And I don't want to make this whole show about that. But that's not the case. The media forgets they were the ones. The media stirs the fans. And the media is the one that causes a lot of these, image issues. But Ben Simmons, whether you believe that he had illnesses or not, whether you believe what he said or not, doesn't give you the right to blame who's at fault here. Nobody's at fault when there's mental health issues in the situation. And it was, I will say this, because I'm glad he's gone. I'm glad the distraction's gone. But he did look happy yesterday. You did see smiles on his face yesterday. He seemed, you could kind of sense that there's a relief in his on his body now that the situation was over and he can move forward.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you and I have talked a little bit about mental illness on this show. Obviously, I've talked about it on multiple shows, and obviously I'm a huge, supporter of cause. The thing with me is I'm not willing to sit there and bash a guy and say that he doesn't have mental illness, because mental illness to me is a wide variety of things. Like, it doesn't necessarily mean that somebody's depressed. It could be depression. It could be anxiety. It could be a bunch of things. If
there's
Ben
different
Simmons
form of depression.
But this is my point. I don't think that Ben Simmons is necessarily lying. Like, I don't. I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. But what I will say is that the way that his camp kind of used it,
yes,
it's almost like they knew that was the only way that they could go to kind of get people off his back, so to speak. And I think it was kind of used in a way that they knew that it was kind of being used to mislead people. And I'm not, like I said, I'm not going to get on this show and say that he doesn't, because I firmly believe that he probably does have some type of mental illness. Like,
I mean,
honestly,
a lot of people, everybody thinks it's the Philly fans and the situation with Doc Rivers and Joy. I mean, most people forget. I mean, he had a very serious family trauma happen or come out. Was it just before or just the beginning of last season? I mean, most people don't even remember that. If you don't know, I mean, the story came out that his sister, brought forth a story that his half brother or half sibling molested his sister and all this kind of stuff. This was all coming out, and he played through it last year. You could see that it was a problem last year with him, and it was affecting his game and his personality and the way he was handling himself. So, I don't know. I mean, everybody's different, but at the core of a lot of mental health issues, family stuff is at the core of a lot of it, whether it's a lack of support or whatever it may be, or the specific cause of the illnesses. But family issues are a major cause of a lot of problems, whether it's an alcohol problem, whether it's a drug problem, whether it's a mental health issue. Family issues are normally one of the main causes of that stuff.
No, I mean, that's 100%, spot on. Like, I don't think, like I said, I think too many people are focusing on the mental illness aspect, and not enough people are focusing on, I'm trying to bring up a quote that I saw yesterday. I saw a good tweet yesterday, and I want to read it.
Mm-hmm.
The Ben Simmons mental health thing seems like an endless argument. I would rather just focus on the fact that he's a loser, a bad teammate, and how he turned his back on an entire city that loved him. Like, that actually resonates very well. Like, everyone's focused on the mental health part, but just leave that in the back behind. Like, let's focus on the fact that he's gone. Like, I want to move forward. I don't want to talk about the guy anymore. Honestly, that's how I am. Like, haven't we talked about it enough? Like, I felt like you said you didn't think that anything could get worse than the Carson Wentz situation, and then Ben Simmons happened. Like, it's done. Dude, we got James Harden. Like, I don't want to talk about it.
The mental health thing, you hit it spot on with a lot of what you said there. But on the other side of it, James Harden went out gracefully. In his press conference, he's like, I'm still friends with, Kyrie, no, this, that. Ben Simmons still took digs in his press. He said, yeah, no, it didn't have anything to do with that other teammate of mine. Or no, I don't have any problem with that coach of mine. Or, he made it didn't have anything to do with that game in that series. Like, he purposely avoided saying names and specific events. And in my mind, when you do that, it had nothing to do with my relationship with that teammate. That kind of is a dig at that teammate, Joel Embiid. You know what I mean? It had nothing to do with that series. So you're specifically bringing up the Hawks series without saying it. You're kind of showing still, and you said it spot on, his camp mishandled this situation. Maybe Ben Simmons did mishandle this situation, but then he kind of got his camp kind of backed him into a wall. I actually still think to this day, if in the very beginning he would have fired Clutch Sports and Rich Paul and got a new agent, there would have been a situation where he was worked back into playing with his team while they tried to work out a trade. I firmly believe that. But his camp backed him into a corner where he couldn't go back to playing for the Sixers. And, but he still shows some immaturity in his personality, the way he says certain things. Whereas James Harden, 33-year-old James Harden, been around the block. He knows what's good and not good to say. He said all the right things. Ben Simmons, on the other hand, did not.
Yeah, but and here's the thing. That has nothing to do with mental health. You just nailed it. The word is maturity. He's immature, he's spoiled, and he's entitled. When you have somebody like that, I don't care how many people talk to him. I don't care how many people say stuff. I mean, Shaq, it's endless. It doesn't matter, because if the guy does not care, if the guy really does not care about basketball and does not, like, if that's not his number one priority, it doesn't matter what you say about him. It doesn't matter, because he doesn't care what you think, Phil. He doesn't care what anybody thinks. He cares about stroking his own ego. And you know what I have to say about that? That's fine. You can go out in a press conference like that and act like an immature, spoiled little brat. But you know what? When it comes down to it on the court, you're going to be shown what a loser you are and how much you suck.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry. That's just where I'm at, because I don't think Ben Simmons will get better. I think he will be exposed just like he was with the Sixers on any team he plays with, because he's not willing to put in the work and get better. And maybe he will, just to spite the Sixers, because I could see that with him. That's the type of person he is, that he will actually say, you know what, I am going to get better because I want to piss them off. That's how he is.
It was so funny. I don't know who did it, but someone shared out a tweet of him knocking down three-pointers in Nets practice, and the Nets reporters were getting all excited about it. I'm like, at least we don't have to see the off-season workout videos of him making shots and then not, Brooklyn's reporters are going to be like, why, now they're going to have to deal with the practice videos versus the game videos, and how they're not the same at all. Two different things. I'm super excited not to personally have to worry about that anymore. But yeah, that's that. All right, so I almost think it's time to just completely move on from the Ben Simmons talk. Just like for like a 6-month span, I just banned the word Ben or Carson Wentz from all my shows. I almost feel like at least till March 10th, if he's playing by March 10th, I almost, from the end of this episode moving forward, we almost can't say Ben Simmons' name anymore, because it's time to move on. It's time to focus on us and our team and not the guys that hold us back and stuff like that. Do you think that's a fair thing to do?
I've already done it. I don't like to say. I said his name on this show now, but I don't. I'll call him the guy who will remain nameless if I'm going to use any kind of.
That jersey that I threw over my shoulder is still sitting on the floor back there too. All right, so last night, real quick, let's talk last night a little bit. I'm not really buying into the loss. I mean, the Sixers lost by 47 points last night. I mean, I'm trying to ignore it. I'm trying to just get past it. There's a lot going on with the team, with the press conferences yesterday. A lot of focus on James Harden being brought to this team. And the Boston Celtics are playing. I think that was their 9th win in a row in Boston, or for Boston last night. Is it okay to ignore that as a clunker, or do you think you should still be slightly concerned? Because obviously they're missing James Harden, and they don't really have a true backup yet for Joel Embiid. Or, can you be like, maybe this team still does have issues, and hopefully James Harden will solve them. But, a game like last night, all eyes on you, national TV. And not just national TV, but all eyes are on your organization because you just got James Harden, and you go out there and just get completely obliterated by the Boston Celtics. So in my mind, there is an issue there, but I'm trying to convince myself there's not.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I would call it a minor blip on the radar screen. Like, I'm not taking it. Like when I saw, because I watched the first part of the game, I didn't see the second half, but watching that first part, like, I mean, you had Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, like they were like both 90% from three at that point in the game. Mm-hmm. Like that kind of shooting just can't, it's not like the norm. So to me, I looked at it more as the Boston Celtics are super, super hot, like, and that they were firing on all cylinders, whereas the Sixers obviously not playing with Harden. Obviously, don't forget, you don't have Seth Curry either, and I'm not saying Seth Curry's like a superstar, but Seth Curry is the kind of guy that can help you in these kind of games where it becomes like a 3-point shootout, and you didn't have that option. And I'm looking at some of the Sixers shooting right now. I mean,
the fact that Matisse had to take 6 3-point shots.
Yeah, they were all. Yeah, there was just not any rhythm, and Embiid, you could look at his stat line and say, wow, he really didn't have a good game, but he also only played 26 minutes. Like, it seems to me like the Sixers were I'm not saying they threw the game or didn't care, but I think it got to the point where they knew it was just not their night. And that happened. Listen, that's going to happen in a sport where you play 82 games a season. And I'm not saying it's okay, Phil.
Mm-hmm.
But what I am saying is to me, I look at this game and say, okay, chalk it up as a loss and you move on, and now you got to win your next game. Like, let's come out now and win the next game, go into the All-Star break with a win, and just move.
I'm looking at it still as a recurring problem with this team. And we've talked about on this show and other shows before. It's Doc Rivers. Again, last night, national TV, all eyes on your team. And Doc Rivers has made the mistake of saying to the media, we just weren't, we just weren't into it tonight. And you can't say that. Last night was a night after the first quarter when you fall behind the way they did in the first quarter. They were down like 10 at the end of the first quarter. A real coach, he gets them, he doesn't get them motivated. He doesn't get them out of those kind of games. He should be able to get them out of that funk. And it's happened multiple times where they've just been lazy and lackadaisical. And that's on coaching and holding that team accountable. And he didn't do it. And again, it happened last night. And I'm still going to say, at this point with James Harden, with the team that we've got here, whenever the buyout market happens, the thing that holds this team back the most is Doc Rivers. And that scares me. And it scares me that in the James Harden press conference, he said he was excited. He wanted to play for Doc Rivers, one of the 10 best coaches in the NBA of all time. And I fear that Doc Rivers isn't going anywhere, but I still fear he's the guy that holds this team back the most.
Well, just yesterday on the show, our topic was who has the most pressure on them.
Yeah.
And that's
why Doc Rivers is one of them to me.
Well, that coincides with why I said, I know that you kind of thought there was more on Morey, but why I believe there's more on Doc. And I've said it numerous times on this show. Doc Rivers, yes, he's done a great job as far as developing talent. Nobody can deny that. Tyrese Maxey, Tybal, some of the other lesser guys. But to me, I've continually said, and I've said it here to you, that I don't see all the hype about Doc Rivers. Like, sometimes I look at him and it feels to me like he's just going through the motions a lot. And you have some of these games where we can call it a shitty game, a clunker, whatever you want to call it, whatever word you want to use. But they have these games where it seems like they're not prepared. And that to me is 100% coaching. That's not the players. That's the coach. So yes, is it a concern? I think it's been a concern all year. I mean, it's not something new. We see this pop up and rear its ugly head, every once in a while. And it's like, okay, well, it's just, you want to chalk it up as a loss, but is there an issue there with the coach? I think sometimes he leaves a lot to be desired.
Yeah.
My hope is that, like I said, that it's a blip on the radar and it's only one game. But
you say that you go and win the next game before the All-Star break. We're going on the road to Milwaukee. We're facing the Bucks, one of the best teams in the league, on Thursday. So you might now go into the All-Star break on a 2-game losing streak. That's not a taste you want in your mouth going onto a long stretch. You needed to win last night because Thursday night is that much more difficult. And that's the problem.
But it's funny because it's so Philly. You win the games that you shouldn't, and you lose the games you should. Like, now they're going to come out and watch. They'll beat Milwaukee, and we'll all be like, "Oh wow!" Embiid will have a 45-point, 10-rebound game, and then you'll be saying, "Wow." I'm just saying that's what happens. That happens all the time. It happens with the Eagles. It happens with the Phillies. It happens with every team except the Flyers.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see about that. But it is concerning to me that they lost the way they did. And I mean, I know that everybody, to Doc Rivers, I mean, I know you're short Seth Curry, like you said, but how did Matisse Thybulle take the most 3-point shots on your team? It's the one thing he cannot do. He only took 6 shots last night. All 6 were 3-point shots. Matisse Thybulle is not a 3-point, 3-and-D wing kind of guy. That's just not who he is. He's a defensive cutter, maybe make a spot 3 at times. But that's on coaching, on your rotation and how you're putting the guys on the floor. He's done that a lot lately. I know we're shorthanded right now without Seth, without Drummond, without James Harden yet. But you go ahead and keep putting Danny Green and Matisse Thybulle on the court at the same time. That's like handcuffing yourself.
Well, you're 100% right. But I will say that I need more from Tobias Harris. Like this, we talked about it, how now him going into the 3 role is going to help. Well, he wasn't the 3 role again. See, that's my point. I think when you get James Harden, you got to realistically, I need him in the lineup to really assess this team. You just made a huge trade. So the trade isn't allowing you to reap the reward yet because he's not playing. It's 2 games. So listen, I'm not saying there's not cause for concern, but what I am saying is let's remember when we made this trade, Tobias Harris becomes your 3. He does not do well.
Almost becomes your 4 if Maxey keeps.
Well, exactly. And listen, I'll be critical of Maxey. We needed more from him last night too. I mean, he only had 11 points. You need 25 points for Maxey if you're only getting 19 from Embiid.
Yeah.
I mean, you do the math. There's only so many guys that you need points from, and when none of them got points besides Embiid, you're going to be in trouble. I don't care if the Celtics did go off. You still would have lost that game because you didn't have enough firepower. And like I said, Tobias Harris, let's be excited for what's going to happen. I'm excited to see him refreshed after the All-Star break with this new situation. And Maxey, too.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. All right, let's wrap the Sixers talk up there for the day. We're going to move on. We're going to talk football and stuff like that. But, we're going to keep monitoring the Sixers situation. We're going to continue going on with the Sixers situation. Again, tomorrow night, it's the last game. Then we get a little bit of a break. All-Star weekend. Actually, I kind of like All-Star weekend. I love the 3-point shooting contest. I used to love the dunk contest, but the lack of star power in the dunk contest, I couldn't even tell you who's in the dunk contest this year because I don't even pay attention to it. The stars show up for the 3. It's kind of crazy that this 3-point contest has overtaken the dunk contest as the premier event, in my opinion, of All-Star Weekend. So we're going to get into, maybe we'll talk a little bit about that tomorrow. Philly, come on now. No, we did not. Get out of here with that. No way. You had to come in right at the end when we're ready to move on to football talk and throw that little parting shot in there on the Sixers talk. All right, so Jason, the Super Bowl's over now. Officially, we can start focusing on next year. We've gotten all the Super Bowl talk out. We've gotten all the Cooper Cup, his amazing season. It was 47, not 52, just so you know. I believe. Anyway, we got all that. So it's time to start focusing on next season now. Okay? We got 20 minutes left in this episode, so I don't want to get into excessive detail on one position or one move. But it's time to start focusing on what this team needs to do moving forward. The draft's in a few months. Free agency will begin soon. We have some free agents, obviously some important ones. I still think that one of the biggest important things that's going to happen, that has to happen immediately, is whether Jason Kelce officially announces he's retiring or not. I mean, I know there's rumors saying he's going to come back next year, but so much of what we do immediately in this offseason centers around Jason Kelce and his decision. All of our main coaches are coming back. Maybe we lose some assistants or assistants to assistants as other teams fill out their coaching staff. But if you had to put your finger on the most important things going forward here in the next 2 to 3 months as we get prepped for next year, what are you eyeing in on as the keys for the Eagles here going forward?
My top 3. Number one important thing for the Eagles for next year is Jalen Hurts' development. Mm-hmm. I guess that's not really a position, but that's
but that's. I'm just saying what's important.
Yeah. Jalen Hurts' development. Number 2, fix the defensive line, which everybody has continually forced down our throats that the defensive line was the number 1 position on this team and number 1 strength, and it's absolutely not. That's obvious after watching the Super Bowl. And then the third thing is fix the wide receiver room, get multiple weapons for Jalen Hurts to help his progression. So they're my top three. If you had a position that I looked at and I'm eyeing up as the number one need, it's defensive end. And we already talked about that yesterday as far as trading. Or no, it was Monday when we did overreaction. We kind of got a little bit into the draft. And I would not be surprised. Everyone's saying about trading multiple picks for a quarterback. Mm-hmm. I would not be surprised if they go the route that you and I talked about, because I think that's what you really need to do. Right. Get a stud defensive end, fix this defensive line, get somebody that can get after the quarterback. Because if you do that, you fix every other position. When you have a better defensive end and defensive line, it makes every single other position better, because you don't have to rely as much. When you're getting pressure, it takes pressure off your corners. They don't have to be as perfect. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, there's going to be multiple needs on this team. We know that. We know Steven Nelson wasn't the answer. So we know we're going to need to look at cornerback. There's so many holes, but I believe that defensive end is your number one issue to fix.
So George is saying that he doesn't think, Kelsey is about what the Eagles. I get what you're saying there, but I think so much of what we have to do centers around Kelsey, because, if Kelsey doesn't come back, then you got to move somebody to center, or you got to draft Lindblom, the center in the draft. But if he does come back, it gives you a little bit more flexibility there, because you still have then that added depth.
I don't think there's even a question. I think Kelsey will be back.
I don't think there's a question whatsoever.
No, I
read an article right before we went on the show about how, they were talking about how, Kelsey could walk away when he's still probably the 1 or number 2 center in football at this point. But I mean, he's been talking about it, for so long. One of the other areas that, I think needs addressed, and it's something that doesn't get talked about enough, is, we talk about Jalen Hurts' intangibles off the field, right? The leader he is in the locker room, right? Kelsey will only come back if we stand a chance of competing. Gotcha. To an extent, yes, I agree with that. But we obviously stand a chance of competing. We made the playoffs this year. With tweaks hypothetically in that locker room, they could sell the team on the fact that they still have a chance of competing. They're a playoff team. They're going to fight for the division, stuff like that. I look at Jalen Hurts and the leadership he is on offense, and Jason Kelsey on offense. Who's the leader on defense? Is there a leader? You go back, the last two were safeties and Malcolm Jenkins and Brian Dawkins. Before that, you had Jeremiah Trotter on defense. We're so void of talent on defense at certain positions that there is no leader of that defense. Fletcher Cox isn't a leader in my mind. He's not the guy that's moving. Brandon Graham, to an extent, is, and he was out all year. So maybe him coming back, if he's healthy, helps that position. But we need a safety. We need a linebacker. We know that. But we need somebody that's going to lead that defense.
I think Brandon Graham is that guy. I mean, Brandon Graham, to me, is the ultimate competitor, a guy that kind of defied all odds. I mean, everyone was saying he was a bust after year 4, and he's pretty much turned his career around. I think Brandon Graham coming back and Brandon Graham being out was not talked enough about. Like, obviously, that killed the defense. Like, because he's not a guy that will get you 15 sacks a year, but he traditionally was getting consistently 8 to 10. But it wasn't that they missed as much as what you're saying, the leadership on the field.
That's what we missed the most on defense. Because sometimes a great leader, even Rodney McLeod before this year, I don't know if Rodney McLeod just doesn't have it anymore because of the injury, or if the injury just held him back and he'll get there again. He's a free agent. Whether we bring him back or not, I don't know. But he was so busy trying to get back to his form, and you're losing Brandon Graham. Sometimes a great leader on defense can help mask some of the deficiencies of your team, because you don't want to get called out by Brandon Graham or Brian Dawkins in the locker room for missing a tackle or missing an assignment, and that's something that this defense severely lacked.
I agree 100%. I mean, I don't think you can quantify the importance of having that leader, because it's good to have, like, obviously you have teams that have one leader that lead the whole team, obviously, and it's generally the quarterback. But the defense, especially, I don't think we looked at it because you had such a young coaching staff. You had a rookie coaching staff across the board. And Jonathan Gannon, whether or not, I know a lot of people hate, I don't want to say hate because that's a strong word. A lot of people don't think Jonathan Gannon is it. And I know that you've kind of been a staunch supporter in saying, let's see what he can do with more talent.
I mean, hey, I won't lie. I've bashed Jonathan Gannon.
Well, I happen to agree with you when you say that, because I do think it's unfair to criticize somebody, especially when he's getting head coaching job interviews. I mean, obviously he's looked at as somebody as an up and coming, so he's obviously doing something right.
Smart mind.
It's just a matter of not having really any talent on the defensive side of the ball, like other than Fletcher Cox, who for first half of the season disappeared. I mean, we were all saying, dude, you need to friggin' step up. And then he finally did towards the end of the year. But other than that, and Darius Slay, I don't really see anybody that gets me excited on that defensive side of the ball. There's just nobody. So I think if you don't have a leader to help kind of get you through that process of going through a new coaching staff, it makes it that much worse because it's magnified.
Yeah, I agree. And I actually think it's great that we didn't lose Jonathan Gannon, or, they didn't move on from Shane Steichen, or, the continuity, because yes, there's a lot of veterans on this team, but there's also a lot of youth on this team. The continuity of keeping the coaching staff together. Now, like I said, there's a chance maybe a wide receiver coach gets poached, or an assistant offensive, guy gets poached to some new coaching staff, across the league. But for the most part, there's going to be straight continuity. So there's no questions going into the offseason, who's going to be leading, what the game plans are going to be like, and what the philosophy of this team is going to be. And I think that's huge for Jalen Hurts. That's huge for, whenever we bring in these young kids from the draft this year. It's important. It's extremely important. And I think that's another positive step forward. Why Jason Kelce could come back. Why, I'm not saying we're a destination, but people aren't going to, last year going into the last offseason, no one wanted to come to Philly. We didn't have the cap space to really sign anybody. But, Howie finagles the money. If Howie really wanted somebody, he would have found a way to get him here. But I'm not trying to say we're a destination like the Sixers, but we're not as a dire situation where people are going to totally ignore the Philadelphia Eagles as a place to play going into next season.
No, but I do think that the draft is going to be huge, obviously, but the draft happens after free agency. So,
yeah,
to me, I wish it was kind of the opposite. I wish the draft happened first, because then you could draft. Say you did get that stud defensive end, you might have guys saying, "Wow, Philly's looking like a good, place to be."
Good.
But
on the other way, you can look at it the other way. The draft pick, you sign your free agents, then you can adjust what you do. You get one of those stud defensive ends. Now you don't have to trade up to get that. You get whoever's best available at that spot. When you're drafting. And I know George always says, Howie does the unexpected, or what we don't expect him to do. And I keep getting in trouble or not in trouble, but bashed on Twitter, because all these mock drafts have the Eagles taking 3, 4, 5 straight defensive players, and that's not Howie's track record. But I kind of think that to an extent, we have to look at most recent draft, and that the most recent draft was last year, and how Howie went against his basic philosophies and drafted in the first 2 rounds 2 players from Alabama, things he never does. He drafted the sure things to an extent versus, the reaches early in the draft. And we've got to hope that that's what Howie does this year. I mean, I've got big boards and mock drafts up, on my separate tabs here. And some of the guys that are going to be available potentially at 15, 16, the Nakobe Deans, where's the other guy, the other linebacker? I can't find his name. Where is he? Well, you got Joby. You got a lot of guys that are not typical Howie picks, but looking at the last year or two, maybe they are. And maybe Howie does surprise us. Devin Lloyd, that was the other linebacker I was looking for. Maybe Howie does surprise us and go against his grain. And maybe I'm wrong for saying, don't to look at Howie's, past and maybe he's actually learned the last couple of years. And linebacker and cornerback, the things he doesn't do. may actually be taken in the first round this year.
I think you're right. I mean, obviously, you know what I hope they do.
Yeah.
I've already said it. I would not be unhappy if they traded up into the top top 5 and got the best defensive end available, and then trade the third first rounder into next year for, obviously an opportunity to get a quarterback if Hurts doesn't work out. I know that people will be like, oh, they did away with all our 3 picks. But it's like I said, do you either want to go for the real sure thing, or do you want to try to hit on 3 picks there at the end of the first round and maybe hit 1? Because that's where I'm at.
Yeah.
When it comes to, I could honestly see them, if they do stick and not make a trade, going 2 defensive players and then taking a wide receiver, because that's not all the board either.
I've said that multiple times. Another wide receiver, either with that third first round pick or that first pick in the second round, it's an extremely viable option in Howie's mind, because you don't just need a wide receiver.
You need 4, dude. Yeah, you need 4 wide
receivers.
receivers.
You need 2 to 3 wide receivers, this offseason to add to this team. And I mean, you chances of getting, Godwin or Allen Robinson, I mean, maybe not. You know what I mean? Whether you trade for Calvin Ridley or not. That's not enough. It's just say the 3 best wide receivers potentially available right now on the market are Ridley in a trade, Godwin, and who else? Allen Robinson. Would you put him as the 3rd best, guy? Maybe. There's a lot of teams that need wide receivers right now. The odds you're going to get them, you have a chance, but there's no guarantee you get them.
Devontae Adams is obviously the number 1, but if
Devontae
Rodgers
Adams
goes back to Green Bay, then he's going to re-sign there.
Yeah. If he goes to Denver, then he's going to go to Denver
He's
too.
going to go wherever Aaron Rodgers.
Him and Aaron Rodgers are kind of like a pair in my mind. I think if a team, does that, I think they're going to try to keep that pair together, wherever Aaron Rodgers plays next year.
I mean, I love Calvin Ridley. I've said it numerous times. It's just a matter of what you're willing to give up for him.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know if I'd want to give up if it took the 19th pick, like the 3rd or first rounder.
Very hard for me to do that.
Yeah, but I don't know if you would need that. I think if Atlanta knows that he wants out, they might be willing to take a second. And if they are, or maybe multiple 2s, I really would be high on doing that, because you're getting a guy that is proven. Now, I know, George, disagreed and said that he was concerned about the mental aspect. Listen, I'm sure they would do their homework on that. If it really is that big of an issue, then you don't make the trade. But to me, talent level, if he's fine mentally, he's top 5 wide receiver in the league. I mean, he took a drastic jump up. That's why they were willing to get rid of Julio Jones. I mean, if that doesn't tell you anything, then I don't know what will, because Julio Jones was like a mainstay, probably the top wide receiver of that decade, or at least one of them. So Calvin Ridley's a guy I definitely would have my eye on. I don't know if it's going to happen, but I talked about some lesser name guys that I definitely think would fit what the Eagles need. Mm-hmm. A guy I definitely would be looking at is DJ Shark.
Yeah, I know you brought him up.
Jaguars. Like, he's a big body. He's 6'2" and he's 200 pounds. Like, he's a guy, and he has speed. So he's definitely a guy that matches what our needs are as far as and I definitely think he'd probably be the cheapest option. Mm-hmm. Now, could you possibly get Allen Robinson and DJ Shark? Mm-hmm. Most definitely. I mean, the Eagles have money now. Mm-hmm. So I don't think –
so do a lot of teams in the NFL.
But I don't think Allen Robinson's out of the question. I think Allen Robinson actually, with the Philly connection, he was Penn State, but he would be an attractive name to me, because I know he fell off the face of the earth last year, but he's not done. You don't just go from being a stud to that. And you can't tell me that didn't have anything to do with playing with a young quarterback that wasn't ready in the NFL. I mean, let's face it, Fields is not ready. Like, I'm not saying Fields doesn't have talent. Fields, a couple of years from now could be a star, but he was not ready. That offense was terrible. Like, talk about a terrible coach. Mm-hmm. I mean, what did you think of that coaching staff in Chicago?
It was bad.
I mean,
it was just bad.
So I don't think Allen Robinson's like drop and play is one of those things where you say, oh, he hit a cliff. I think it was more so the situation he was in, and it was just a bad year. I mean, so if anything, that would help your chances of signing a guy like that because he's going to get less money. He's not going to have that same command of money as you know he would have if he had 100 catches and 1,000 yards. I mean, that's just a fact.
Yeah.
Chris Godwin. I'd love Chris Godwin too, but
injured end of the season. When will he be ready? When will it's crazy that some of the biggest names on the market, are now coming off of major injuries. Him, OBJ, and stuff like that. It's going to be unfortunate. It's going to be, big. I mean, it seems like a lot of these guys at wide receiver all have a lot of question marks next to their name.
Yeah, I mean, DJ Shark was coming off an injury. Godwin coming off an injury. Calvin Ridley was out for the mental health issue. OBJ, another ACL, which by the way sucks. I feel bad for the guy.
I do feel bad for the guy.
But at least he got a ring.
Yeah, he got his ring. Deshaun Jackson got his ring too.
Oh, because he was on the team, right?
He was on the team. He gets his ring. You can now say Deshaun Jackson when he goes into the Hall of Fame, because I do think he will get in. Not right away, but I thought
he was on the Raiders.
Yeah, he was on the Rams too for a little while. He played for a lot of teams.
How does he get a ring?
Because he played for the team.
Wait a sec. So if you played for the team this year and then you're on another team, you still get a ring?
Yeah, as long as I forget how many weeks you have to be
That's
on the active
ridiculous.
roster. But if you're on the active roster for a certain amount of weeks, you get a ring.
Oh,
He was on the roster for the Rams for like 3 weeks or 4 weeks, maybe even longer than that. I'm not even sure. But yeah, he definitely.
I like Deshaun Jackson, but he don't deserve a ring. He left. He won it out.
He won it out. You don't think that he's kicking himself in the ass for that one right now? Yeah, he could have played in a Super Bowl. Hold on, let me see here. He played in. He was on the roster for the Rams for 7 weeks this year. He played in 7 games, and he was 9 games with the Raiders.
He had 1 game where he had like 150 yards.
He had 8 catches for 221 yards and a touchdown with the Rams.
Yeah.
He had 12 catches for 223 yards and a touchdown with the Raiders. So 7 games is enough to get yourself a ring. So he is getting himself a ring, and he is now a Super Bowl champion. Deshaun Jackson.
That's crazy. I think that's a dumb rule.
It is a dumb rule. It really is.
How should you get a ring if you're not on the team? I mean, I get it if you're injured, but no, he's on the Raiders.
Yeah, no, absolutely. All right, we're gonna wrap it up there. We got lots of Eagles talk. We're gonna talk more Eagles. I'm not sure exactly, which direction we'll take tomorrow. I really want to spend some time the hypotheticals, and I know there's a lot of heated discussions and topics and opinions on the quarterback situation, Jalen Hurts, and I know we're all on on the same page saying he will be the quarterback next year, Jalen Hurts. But again, this week there's been more rumors about Deshaun Watson, Russell Wilson, more different situations with the Eagles quarterback situation. So I think we're going to examine that a little bit tomorrow. And of course, the thing that I got bashed last offseason for talking about a lot, and everyone told me I was an idiot for bringing it up, is starting to get some mainstream attention this offseason, and that's potentially trading Miles Sanders. So I think that might be the starting point on tomorrow's show is, those 2 situations with the Eagles, because we're going to continue to talk that. And I think we're going to do my first live mock draft on Friday's show, and we're going to continue to do mock drafts once a week on the show as we continue to round out what the Eagles' needs are and how everything plays out. And I'm not a mock draft expert, but I'm gonna give it my best shot, and I think that's how we're going to go the rest of the week, Eagles talk-wise, and we'll see what else is breaking news-wise throughout the leagues and all the leagues across the board. Again, this is Trending in the AM right here on DSM Media, brought to you by Manscaped, the leader in men's grooming products. Jason, another fantastic show today. Thank you for being here with me today. You can follow Jason at Mustang3651. What's your schedule the rest of the week? I know. Do you have any sports and metal shows this week?
Yeah, Sports and Metal actually Friday at 7 p.m.
How about Drunk on Ice?
Drunk on Ice is off this week.
Yeah, because hold on a second. I wasn't prepared actually for that. I should have been prepared.
2-second segment.
Yeah, what's up with the Flyers this week?
They lost again.
Oh, okay. All right, yeah, there we go.
It's becoming fun.
Oh my God! I mean, I think you didn't even talk about the Flyers on your last Drunk on Ice show, did you?
No, we actually talked about the Super Bowl and the James Harden.
Yeah, see, that's
How
how
crazy
bad
is
that the
that?
Flyers are. That your Flyers show has to talk about other topics. Yeah,
It's just brutal, dude. But they did say that Claude Giroux has requested. He gave a list of teams to Fletcher as far as where he'd be willing to be traded. So I think we are going to see a Claude Giroux trade. That would be big
the
news.
trade deadline's like middle of March, isn't it?
It's definitely, yeah, it's coming up middle of March. I think March 18th or 17th. So that's definitely something to watch. I think you could get a nice return for Claude Giroux to help your team, moving forward. And it's the right thing. We've already talked about it. Blow it up.
Yeah. No. One final thing. I did hit the national calendar day today. Today is National Do a Grouch a Favor today. So everybody that knows Jason, please do him a favor today. That's a legit national holiday. Do a Grouch a favor. Who comes up with these national days?
Do a Grouch a favor?
Yeah. So you're grouchy, so we need to do you a favor. So that maybe you're a little less
like
grouchy.
any grouches at my job, I have to be nice to.
Do them a favor. You have to be nice to them. It's basically be nice to a-holes. To summarize what do a grouch is, be nice to assholes, basically, is what it is.
Be nice to a-hole day. Instead of
basically that is what
Grouch a favor day. AKA be nice to an asshole.
Yeah, be nice to me because I'm the a-hole guy. So anyway, we're gonna wrap it up there. Everybody have a great day. Have a great, wonderful day. Be nice to those a-holes today out there. And as we end every show, go Birds.